this episode, we're super excited to have Artemis Manias, an experienced chartered counselling psychologist and founder of the Artemis Psychological Therapies. She's joined us, and she joins us with over 15 years in this field. In fact, I've got to admit here, I even experienced her myself a few years ago. We had some amazing sessions with Artemis, and which is how I came to know her in the first place. So I've got first-hand experience of the benefit working with her strategies and ideas. She specialises in helping professionals navigate the complexities of corporate life, relationships, and personal well-being. She integrates a range of therapeutic approaches to support leaders in managing stress, enhancing relationships, and fostering resilience. So strap yourself in for a highly beneficial, super topical conversation on how we explore these psychological insights to help us empower our personal and professional development.
So welcome, Artemis. Thank you for joining us today. And just to give our listeners a bit of an overview in terms of what we're going to cover, we're going to look at the corporate context and its impact on mental health and well-being, and look at some of the challenges that people come to you in your work. And the great thing is that you're going to provide insight into some of those challenges, but also strategies to help people deal with those. So I know it's going to be a highly practical session, and probably a great place to start is for you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the work that you do.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for having me. Think about this is the third time we worked together, and I have to say I could not do the introduction about myself that Martin did. So I have actually now got I remember my first client was in 2004, so 20 years we're coming up to. I feel a bit old, but so I work with lots of different people, from people with severe mental health issues to corporate, to leaders, to stressed, overworked mothers, wide range of I come across a wide range of issues. Mm. That's given me sort of an experience to kind of look at many sort of areas of people's lives. And I personally am quite solution focused. So if you can, and you've got a problem, I think one ought to look at trying to find some sort of solutions, even if it's not a massive one, but staying in positions of what we will talk about, stress, is not, I think, a good way forward for anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a huge issue. I mean, I was just doing some research in terms of the size of the issue, and there was a HSE report that said that there's 17 million working days are lost by issues related to either stress or some mental health related issues in the workplace. And that equates to 914,000 workers being off at any one time for this reason, which costs the economy, which blew my mind, £5 billion.
Yes.
It's just a huge issue. And actually, all of the stats point to the fact that it's on the increase, not the decrease. So, a really important discussion for us to have.
I'm not surprised, actually, I have to say. I'm going to actually give you a couple of examples, because I was speaking to an air stewardess, can't remember what context, whether I was on the plane or not, and she said, she worked in business class, and she said, look, I really feel sorry for people, the corporate people, the leaders, and they used to have a moment where they sat and had a bit of, Prosecco and enjoyed the film, and this is not the case anymore. So they now still feel guilty if they haven't answered an email on the sort of journey from kind of London to New York, whereas that used to be a little bit of sacred space to kind of go, no one can contact me, I can get on with watching a film.
Yeah.
It's just going that way.
I refuse now to. I know that you can connect to the Wi-Fi on these transatlantic flights, which I do several, and doing one tomorrow. But I have very, very rarely succumbed to connecting, because it is actually, you've got that 5 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours of relaxation. But you see people, all the cabin is dark, they've got their laptops open, they're working away and spreadsheets out.
Yeah.
You know, it's where we live in a 24/7 connected economy, and that raises expectations of immediate replies to things. And without those sort of ground rules that you either set for yourself or are set in the organization, there is an expectation you need to respond in, you know, a nanosecond of an email being sent, which puts
There's always something else to do, isn't there? There's always something else you can do. So it's only discipline in creating the boundaries that are going to help you, you know, in this instance. And I guess that, you know, home used to be the equivalent of the flight, didn't it? You know, you could go home and get away from work, but because you're connected all the time, you know, it's no wonder that people are struggling with this.
But I think it's people's expectations we're dealing with. It's the expectations of whoever is working or whoever wants something, that you have got to be available. And I don't think it's sort of field specific. I mean, my husband is a barrister and he was very sick a couple of weeks ago. So sick, it may have been COVID, he couldn't get his head up. And he kept literally having emails all day saying, yes, I know you're real, but I know you're real, but. And it was like ping, 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 ping. It's like he could hardly keep his eyes open. But the expectation was that ill or not, at some point during the day, you're going to get up and answer those emails. It's like it just doesn't stop. And that's what it is people's expectations that you are going to, at some point during the 24 hours, you are going to answer. And there is no sort of the kind of, oh, I'm going to a holiday. I have people asking me permission to switch off their emails, almost like they need the sort of person goes, no, doctor says you mustn't keep your laptop closed. And if I give permission under the sort of mental health, then it's okay. My psychologist said, if people feel completely complied to, oh, well, I've somehow I've got to, you know, and negotiating either with a wife or the wife with the husband, do you mind if I write a couple of emails and you look after the kids? This is holiday. So there is no break. There is no, I can just switch off now.
I got this lasting image
Sorry.
on a beach. It was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And on the sunbed next to me is this guy, wife next to him on the next sunbed. He's got a towel over his head. He's got a towel over his head. And underneath, he's got his laptop.
His office.
But to stop that, I'm carrying, exactly. And occasionally his wife would come back to him, sort of pick the towel up and pass a drink. And I just thought, how very, very sad. I felt like I'm ripping it off him and saying, what are you doing, my friend?
Yeah.
You know, this is, I talk about being and Lisa and I are very supportive of each other here, work together, being professional holiday takers. So you apply the same level of professionalism to a holiday or to a vacation you would to your work. You do it really well. And doing it really well is being present with your holiday vacation time. You travel across the world to see this place, but you've got one foot in answering the problems that once you've left, leave them behind. Let someone else deal with them. So, Anyway.
So in terms of the clients that come to you, Artemis, have you seen, you know, are you experiencing this steady increase of people coming with these sorts of issues? And has it increased substantially since the pandemic?
Oh my goodness. And I think when we did the pandemic webinar, we were looking at thinking, I don't know if you remember, we were going to say the wave is going to come, thinking of the wave in relation to physical health. The mental health is the tsunami of for younger generation and huge. And then, of course, people working in a context of what you think, oh, well, you know, I've got a couple of days at home to work and I've got to go to, you know, in principle, it sounds good, but actually I have seen burnouts. And the problem is that I don't think the medical world properly recognizes burnout. So they go to the GP and they say, oh, you're a bit tired or a bit depressed. Here are some, you know, citalopram, will take some vaccine. It's like, no, let's look at, and that's how I work. I look at someone holistically, you know, all areas of someone's life, what's happening to your balance, to your private life, you know, to your holiday, to the colleagues at work, to the workload, to the breaks that you take. And I just kind of do a map and kind of look at what is going on. And I would say, 8 out of 10, I don't have the specific stats, but I would say people are overworking. And when they do, and it's a bit like the guy that has the office on the beach, you influence everybody around you. Because I'm sure on the beach, you couldn't relax with someone that you're trying to switch off and he's kind of got his office under it. You sit on the train and people are working and they're sort of got this energy, going, I've got to get this in now because it's the end of the world. And what's just really weird, it's just not field specific. And I kind of say to people, slow down, let's put this into context. Is someone going to die tomorrow? Are you the doctor that has to be dealing with an emergency? No, just do your traffic light. Is this a green problem, an amber problem, a red problem? Take time to just establish what needs to be addressed urgently and what can wait.
Yeah.
It can make a huge difference in your level of stress.
I think that it's definitely about getting things in, because it's easy to get sucked in, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's easy to think, I've got to get this done, but you don't actually stop and take a step back and think, does it actually need to be done right now? And sometimes, in previous, obviously, you never get stressed working with Martin, but in previous roles, I've actually thought, hang on a minute, why am I getting so worked up about this? And in 40 years' time, when I'm dealing with the fallout of working like this, will will this company or these people, will they even care? And I definitely won't care in 40 years' time, apart from dealing with the symptoms of it, and the fallout from it. So getting it into perspective, definitely.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question then about this, Artemis? These folks that are behaving the way you're describing, where is that coming from? Is it when you do your therapeutic practice with them? Is it self-imposed? Is it self-imposed rules? Is it the expectation of the culture or the people around them? Or actually is it coming from within more often?
I think it's both. I think I would say that a lot of people are in sort of good position in their jobs. They are, conscious of doing a good job. They're people that take care of themselves and others. They are, I've got a leader of a big company. He's America, no names mentioned, he's here. He's so conscious to do a good job that every time he has to make somebody redundant, he cannot sleep at night. His world collapses. He's so responsible for the person and their family and the effect that it's going to have. So if you get a conscientious human being, they are going to be thinking about, they're going to be feeling about this. And so when they go home, they're not going to be present. Why? Because they're thinking, oh my God, I have got to dismiss so-and-so. And so the wife gets annoyed because, I've been home with the kids all day with 3 kids, and she's stressed because she wants to talk to somebody. He's thinking of work because he's conscientious. Sort of married up with the culture. There is a culture of overworking. There's a culture that is expecting things to be done quickly. Now, because we can't, we are going to hire AI, which is just, how fast can fast be? I don't understand at which point we are just going to be kind of matching up with AI. I find that's a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so I think it's both. I think we are moving into, I think we're all a little bit brainwashed as well, actually, because we're not realizing a lot of the time that this is happening. And I think one of the biggest skills we've got is it's consciousness, is noticing things, is take a break, so that everything that is so subjective, you take a little bit of a distance and you start seeing it. So if I got my hands here, can't see my hand, but the moment I start moving a little bit away from me, hang on, there's I'm wearing some rings. And I think it's simpler than we actually think.
Yeah.
Consciousness, paying attention to, noticing things, which is what mindfulness actually sort of preaches, if we want to call that, which is not, but a lot of people don't understand what that means. Be mindful.
And what stops people what stops people actually talking about this until they're at the situation that they're in crisis point and, needing to engage the services of somebody like you?
I think when you're in the world that you're so subjective, you don't actually see it. That's the problem. That's why we need a other person, whether, a good friend or I go for professionals because in the professional context, I personally feel that is a space dedicated to that. Friends are busy, also overloaded with their stuff. So you can do that. I like to put the pleasure, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, the pleasure bit of life with pleasure. If I overload my friends and overload me, it all becomes kind of a heaviness. And so I like to have my coaching moment to talk about that. And that's where you see, oh, did I do that? Oh my gosh, you're right. Oh my gosh, I've noticed that. Otherwise, how do you know? You're so busy. You're not going to stop and think this is what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. You need somebody to be able to hold the mirror up, and it's better from a professional context. Do you think, though, that, is the conversation, I know that the conversation is happening more around mental health and that sort of thing, but is there enough? And in your experience, do people feel comfortable going to their boss and saying, I'm stressed out, I'm really struggling, or is there still a stigma associated with that?
I have to make distinctions between the Gen Zs and the people before. So I find that people of around my age, they tend to sort of, I'm still a little bit old-fashioned about it. Will that show that I'm vulnerable? Will that mean that actually people are going to be thinking, that there is something wrong with me and that I'm not capable of my job? And then there is a sort of newer kind of generations that actually expect to be heard, rightly so. And they expect to have their kind of mental health day, and they expect to have the well-being day, which is fair enough. They expect promotions every few months. They're not able to sustain a year of hardship. I'm generalizing here, but I'm just to kind of point things out. I know that I've seen in organizations, that is far more acceptable now. And my issue with that is that sometimes I think it's a bit of a tick box exercise. So you have one day where, hey, I'm going for my well-being day. I think the attitude there is, I'm taking on board. So as a sort of leader, I'm taking on board, I'm giving my staff a day off. Now, for me, that isn't enough. I think a better way to work is shorter break more often. I don't think one day every so often and overworking the rest is going to do the job, actually. So my attitude would be more breaks. So even the idea of suggesting by our Prime Minister the 4 days week is brilliant idea, because in the regeneration is then the ability to represent yourself and the ability to work more effectively. However, I've dealt with people in the kind of go, but in the 4 days, if A, I lose the 5th day payment, and B, if I have to do 5 days work in 4, that's really, there's no point to that, actually.
Yeah, that's always the challenge, isn't there? With, I work 3 days a week, and, there is a temptation to try and squeeze 5 or even more, days into that time. So, going to a 4-day week, what happens to the work?
Yeah.
I think back to what you said just about the more frequency of the break. I think that everything I've read and heard about this and studied is that how you design your day every day is much more important than saying, geez, I've been working really hard, I need to have a break. Because to be quite frank, it's a bit like if you feel thirsty, you're already dehydrated. If you drink plenty of water regularly, you don't get dehydrated, therefore fixing a problem. I think we need to think about how somebody designs their day, what rules they got, what time is starting, when are you having breaks, how many meetings you're going, how long are these meetings going to be, what are the gap between the meetings, are you building time for taking a 10-minute walk or a bit of fresh air. I think then you're not having to deal with an acute problem. So I completely that idea. I think it's you behaving yourself into a problem which you then feel you're going to fix by having a day off. And I like your point around the tick box thing, because it's like, you're having a well-being day.
Yeah.
Let's live our life in a well-being way. Is probably a better solution.
And there's so much research, isn't there, about the power of recovery and the need for good sleep and all of the other things that you need to build into your day.
Yeah. Just in case people are listening to this and thinking, do you know, I don't know, what is it with these people? I'm putting myself in a position of listening, and they're going, what is it with these people, this well-being stuff? I mean, goodness sake, can't they just handle life, right? and they're thinking, I'm doing all right. I'm a driver. I get up, I go for it. I go to bed tired every day. What do you say to those people who think that they don't need this stuff? They don't need to pay attention to it. People are being a bit wimpy. What do you say to those people?
See, it's a difficult one, because if sometimes you say something to somebody that doesn't want to hear it or hasn't experienced it, and in other words, links to not having empathy.
Yes.
They're very kind of lacking understanding. And they're in a position that they think they're doing well. And my advice to them is like, okay, if that is truly the case, I wish you well. But in my experience, it's like it's building a bill, a few months down the line. If you're not aware of what's happening to your mind, to your body, it's just a disaster about to happen. Right. So on the sort of kind of more of acknowledging that, is this actually okay? Is this healthy? Am I doing enough? So for me, I work on noticing and making sure that I understand when my body and my mind tells me tricky, and you can see the signs. Because, you're struggling to get up a little bit in the morning, you're feeling a bit more tired. So for those people, I would say, let's start asking yourself some questions. Do you still have the same energy that you've got? Do you get up with a positive mindset? It's like, I'm going to work today. Or you're going, oh gosh, I've got 8 hours. How am I going to do it? Do you have lots of little things going wrong with your body? I've got a little bit of a pain here. Are you noticing that? And if you do, are you booking that appointment with a GP? Or I tend to go to Chinese medicine doctors and sort of other alternative. I think both, by the way, not just one way. But if you don't know, your body is still reacting to your mind and the stress. The difference is you don't noticing until later on. But if you do, it's a bit like the holiday scenario. If you take your breaks, you will be actually avoiding a big fall.
This is precisely what I thought you probably would say, is that we don't notice it until it becomes. So we think your mind is going, I should be able to do this. I can do it. Drive. And then eventually your body just says, actually, you've been ignoring me all this time. I'm now going to bring you to a grinding halt. And so I would advocate that when we talk about resilience, we always say that resilience is something you do, not who you are. I can say I'm being resilient, but if you're not doing the things that will make you resilient, eventually it'll catch up with you. So you typically, I assume, are on the receiving end of somebody where it's got to a point where they're now burning out or
in crisis.
What are those types of symptoms that you see that people, when they're experiencing, just to give some sort of sense of, to speak to that audience, to say, look, you might be feeling okay at the moment, but be warned, these are the sorts of things that could manifest if you're not careful.
It's tiredness that cannot be regenerated over a couple of days, even holiday. It sort of stays there on a continuum, and you always feel just a little bit under the weather, not quite thriving ever.
Okay.
Your memory starts going, and you forget keys. Oh gosh, I left that stuff on the oven. What was I meant to be doing? And you see that your memory starts to kind of slip up. It's feeling never quite looking forward to something, feeling not quite enthusiastic. It's not wanting to take part in social activities. You start feeling like, I can't be bothered to see so-and-so. I don't really feel like talking to them. What's the point? It's a bit of a what's the point mentality. And start developing physical stuff because your body reacts to it. I've got a stomachache. I've got a bit of a stomachache. I've been having this for a while now. And guess what? I also got a backache. And I go to the gym and it doesn't do it. And I take the vitamin, it doesn't do it. And I take a rest and it doesn't do it. So when the symptoms continuously persist, unless, of course, there is something more sinister, then you start looking at, I'm overloaded. And especially when you look at your work and you kind of go, my God, I've got another 20 emails and I don't think I can face it. Really got to start planning. You got to start planning. How am I going to look at this in a different way? Like I said to you, I've got this, I'm going to use this person as an example. He didn't quite know why he felt tearful, tired. He's in a position he likes and a really kind of big job and he loves it. but he's beginning to be overwhelmed with everything. He's done everything he can. The wife is not happy. He feels he's not satisfying his boss. He feels that he's not satisfying his team members because he has to make a few redundant, and he doesn't want to overload them. He doesn't want to overload them because so he takes it on board. And I can see he is just beginning to crumble. And so we started on rescheduling his work. And I did I use often from the sort of school of behavioral therapy, the ACE, which we have done in our webinar, which is a sort of rebalancing of, 3 very important areas of your life, which is sort of achieve, connect, and enjoy. So achievement, enjoyment, and connection with people. There are 3 important areas. And if those are compromised in your life, i.e. they're out of balance, then things start going wrong.
Mm.
And it doesn't take a huge change. I mean, with this person, he couldn't meet any of the dinners of the children. And so he never got to see the children until the weekend. And I said, there must be a day that it's a little bit quieter, that you can go home and tell the wife that you've heard her. Tell yourself that you can do that with your children, and tell your boss, I'm sorry, boundaries. I've got to be able to be home for 1 dinner a week that is not the weekend. It was tweaking the Monday. We tweaked the Monday. Wife felt heard. Oh gosh, he's taking this on board, because she was getting really tired of it. Kids are happy seeing dad. It's a Monday day. And small changes like that. It doesn't have to be a catastrophic change. It's tweaking. So we can just carve ourselves a little bit of time here, a little bit of time there. And then slightly, boundaries around email. Everybody's got to close the office at some point. It's your choice, because next day, nothing is going to change. You're just going to have as many. You want to survive. Close the office on a Monday. That's it. Done. Don't look at it.
And so it's like sort of taking a bit of a stock take in terms of different areas and identifying where the issues are, and then putting almost like your own personal ways of working. And, how do people actually stick to that when the boss is going, I know you said that, but I need you to do this?
Yeah.
How do they do that?
Yeah, so I kind of sit with people and give really catastrophic examples. And I would say, given even the stats that you just mentioned, Lisa, I'm going to say, yes, so you say to your boss that I can do that today, I can do that tomorrow, but I can, having talked to a specialist in the area, I can say that maybe in a month's time, there won't be a Monday, there may be weeks that I have to take off. Just shout it out, because I think people in this case, although they all, being aware of mental health seems to be like, a sort of in phrase, but being aware means you're taking action. It means you're listening to your team members. It means you implement strategies. It means you're asking them, what do you need? So I had a lady that she kept saying, look, I can't do this. Oh, you're brilliant. Phrasing, you can do this, right? She burned out so badly that in the first year of our therapy, she could hardly get up for therapy and having a cup of tea. And second year, she started recovering. She could never go back to the job, and she had to take them to court. And their argument was, well, you should have taken care of yourself. So they put it on her. So make sure you raise that flag, big, red. I am not good. If I do this for you, I am not in a good way.
Yeah, so demonstrating the consequences. And I mean, a lot of people that listen to the podcast are leaders of teams. So I guess the first thing is role modeling that for your team. What else can leaders of teams do to make sure that even if the individual hasn't spotted it themselves or vocalized it themselves, that they are supporting their teams?
Well, if someone comes and talks to you, and like in a lot of cases, that you don't take action, that to me is a pointless exercise. So have that meeting. When you're a staff member and you ask them what they want, whether it be a little bit less work or workload, there is a lot now, and I don't know why that is. Oh yeah, because so-and-so has gone on holiday, so all the work has fallen onto me and no one else can do it. So I'm thinking, how is this working kind of systemically, that if someone goes on holiday, one team member and everybody else is so overloaded? To me, that's indicative of kind of the level of work that people are like. Somebody should be able to go on holiday, and it means that it burns out the rest of the team, right? So when the team member comes to you and you put together a few strategies, what you need, a little bit more time off, lighten up, spread, the work, blah, blah, listen and do it. If the team member then doesn't do it, I would intervene. I would intervene and say, we've discussed that. you're not doing it. You're still leaving late. You're looking tired. What's going on a Monday morning? Do we need to call that? And a lot of corporates have like Bupa. And do we need to call the company and actually, do you need, the first appointment to be booked for you to look for some help? Help them see it after they've told you, because sometimes people go back to their routines. Oh, I've said it now to my boss. I'm good. No, you need to change something. Talking is not taking actions.
Yeah. No, that's a very, very good point.
Back to something you said just a few moments ago about because I think people maybe don't appreciate the gravity of the situation until it's either happened to them or they've really seen it firsthand. And you see it a lot. I see it occasionally. I remember coaching a guy last year, and then suddenly he wasn't there anymore. And I thought, oh. I mean, I didn't know anything about it. I was coaching him on, leadership stuff, not his well-being. But I then found out that this super bouncy, energetic individual literally could not even get out of bed. And then it was probably about 3-4 months later, finally, he came back to the surface and he told me all about it. And, but he said it was just a point where he was disguising it. He has such a reputation for being such a enthusiastic, inspirational person. He just couldn't bear the idea that he couldn't be that individual, so he just kept going. Is that something you see? Is it how does it really I just want people to understand that it could happen to you if you don't look at yourself, and it's really serious.
Yeah, first of all, I have to say, when people are so cheerful, sometimes I'm quite a cheerful person. You guys seem quite cheerful, there is a level that it goes from being cheerful to be a slightly stressy way of being hyperactive. And I am beginning to think then when I look at someone like that, I kind of go, is that sort of borrowed energy? Is that adrenaline? Is that the little cortisol kicking in because you need to compensate? You're using from your reserve to try and keep going. Your reserve is empty. Your tank in the car is empty, but you just keep going. I would notice this if you're a good leader, watch and observe behaviors, because it's small changes that kind of give it away. And those people that actually, in any case, vibrate at a quite hyperactive energy, they tend to burn out quicker because they're just burning that candle at both ends. So I have seen people burn out that you would never think. And in fact, I have to say, Martin, although I haven't got stats or research to quote on that one, I have seen that those actually that are the very high achiever, and they are so enthusiastic about what they do that they burn out because they do not want to let anybody else down, because they feel that is a failure for them. And that to me is a dangerous place to be, because burnout is a thing that is real.
So what are some of the real kind of preventative actions that people can start to take to avoid this potentially in the long term?
If you find yourself, because one of the symptoms that some people manifest actually is anxiety.
Yeah.
It's anxiety, because anxiety, we're looking at the limbic system, we're looking at your limbic brain start to think that 20 emails equals 20 lions, chasing you. There was a strike, when you start thinking that you can't manage, and you could before, you are really looking at there's something beginning to go wrong. So why are you so anxious about that? Because of course, anxiety is, as we know, is sort of a response to kind of stress, and once the adrenaline kicks in and the cortisol kicks in, you're in danger zone. But why? So I would ask myself, well, what is it that I'm perceiving as danger? It's the usual. It's because your mind is beginning to decline, and the ability of your mind to make a distinction between what needs to be addressed as a potentially stressful situation and not so stressful situation, the ability to do that is now beginning to be compromised.
Just to explain to the listener then, when you talk about cortisol coming into the system, what is the purpose of that?
For those who are not aware, I make assumptions because nowadays even my kids go, oh yeah, we've done that at school. So it's the sort of the fight and flight response, which is a response to stress, is how we react to danger. It's a sort of older part of the brain, it's our reptilian brain, which is different to a kind of frontal, kind of logical brain that thinks. When we have to engage the brain of danger, let's call it that, protecting ourselves, instinct, which is in the limbic system, then we are acting on survival. And when we do that, the adrenaline, cortisol start flooding our body. We need those. If we were in a physical situation, we would need those to literally fight the mammoth or run away to defend ourselves in a context of kind of physical danger. But a physical danger today could be, a meeting with somebody you don't like or a stressful situation. And that we see in work environments, because today our, 5 lions are important emails or a meeting that you feel you're not up to it. So your level of tolerance, which would have been here, I can do those 3 meetings, I can do those 20 emails and God knows what, starts shrinking. So it takes a little bit of a trigger to set you off.
Yeah.
Means your system is now activated, something is up.
I think really identify with that. I think it's like the headroom. I think people can, and I think that's a really good example, Artemis, that people can really identify and go, well, yeah, that's me. I'm just about operating.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot for me to flip.
Yeah.
So, back to what you said earlier, looking for the signs of you becoming less patient.
Yeah.
A little bit edgy, less tolerant.
Yes.
These are the warning signals. Yeah.
Yes.
So once they've got that awareness, then what are some of the, because you were saying small things make a big difference. What is the advice you generally give people in terms of how to start shifting the dial?
Yes, I would, if people is in a position that they can talk to the line manager, I would say immediately approach them. A lot of companies now have counseling on board, or approach a professional or a coach that can look at the schedule. And although it seems easy, I can look at my diary, it isn't. Because at that point where you're fighting 5 lions, your level of, objectivity is highly reduced. You start not seeing what's right or wrong for you, or at least not as much as you should. And so you need any other person, if more is better, if you got your line manager and a coach and maybe your partner, you start putting it out there. You're then going to have to take steps to reduce your workload. If it is the level of work, not the workload, but not the quantity, but the quality, you look at that. You look at when was the last time you took a break? A little bit like the ACE, I keep going on about it.
You mentioned a couple of times, Artemis, this concept called ACE, which I think you have shared with us in the previous time we spoke. Could you just cover that off and how people might be able to use that?
Yes. So this sort of, I use it a lot because I'm quite a strategist. So I work quite a lot in CBT, and this is of the world of, I mentioned CBT because everybody tends to know the cognitive behavioral therapy. This is from the behavioral therapy part of that. And I use a lot because sometimes I find that when you write something, it can actually help you. And in the sort of kind of psychological world and, coaching and even spiritual, writing journals sometimes can help, because where your mind may be overloaded with a lot of negative thinking and stuff, writing can help you take it from the brain down and be able to have a look at it in a more kind of constructive way. So the ACE basically is a scale that looks at achievement, closeness, and enjoyment. Because let me go in details. So we do this for a week, for instance, and we look at someone's achievement from the tiniest sort of activity, which could be taking a shower, having breakfast. For 1 week, you go really in details and you score that. So let's say, I think there's an example there, getting up in the morning, having breakfast, achievement 2, but a pleasure 9. Closeness, if you're having breakfast with a member of your family, could be 9 or could be nothing. And you score each one of the activities for a week from 0 to 10. At the end, I calculate someone's activities for the whole week. And you notice that people that have got score really high on achievement tend to have quite a bit of a sort of anxious, dissatisfied mood. They work very hard. They have no time for pleasure. I'm making a kind of a broad statements here. Those who score high in enjoyment, they may be lacking the achievement part of it. They may have a great time all the time, lots of free time watching TV, play games or whatever, but they perhaps need a little bit more motivation in the work or this sort of work satisfaction. Closeness, it has to be a good balance for everyone, because actually there are stats that show that people that have even the introverts, put it this way, need people. just in the way that extroverts and introverts regenerate that is different. The extrovert will regenerate with more energizing activities. The introverts can stay with people and even present if they want to, but they need to regenerate alone. So stats show us that closeness, whatever you are, introvert, ambivert, or extrovert, is important. And that's why it's in this scale. So isolation is not good for anyone. And one of the signs we see in people becoming depressed is actually the isolation, and people burn out. They start feeling that kind of depressed feelings and they don't want to go out and see people.
Withdraw, don't they?
Withdraw.
Yeah.
So a good balance of these three is a good starting point, because you look at your scale and you look at your scores and you go, oh my God, I've got high achievement because I've been really working. I had so many meetings and that's going great. But when was the last time I had that small break, or that quality time with the family, or I went and did some sports that I liked? That is important to look at it. And I use that a little bit as a sort of kind of a benchmark, and just looking at it's simple, it's not that difficult. And you do that for a week and you start seeing, going back to the noticing, being aware of. And I use that quite a lot for people that don't know where they're going wrong in their schedule.
Yeah.
The idea is for them to create awareness around these three. Is that the idea? Is to create awareness around it?
For them and for the clinicians, these have been kind of, there's research evidence that actually that is in the scoring statistical kind of world. It is that is people that got high achievement tend to suffer from anxiety, and people with kind of more on the pleasure, they tend to have more kind of depressive symptoms, or they can have sometimes a combination of both, because it's difficult
because of the lack of purpose, or the lack of achievement, the lack of
pleasure. You're working all the time, you have no pleasure, you're going to start feeling a bit anxious or depressed. So for them is to kind of go, and then I can go, hey, look at this. I didn't realize that, from sort of 8 to 8 p.m. is all achievement high, and I don't see much pleasure. Is there a way we can start introducing that?
Right.
So that helps you then craft something that is more in balance across the three areas.
Exactly.
I think the closeness, the closeness is it closeness to people? Is that what you're talking about? It's connection to people, or feeling?
There's stats that show that people literally need at least 2 very close people, confidant, whatever you call it, people that they can talk to. And then they can have another, hundreds of little exchanges, that used to have a lot in the past, meeting the person down the road, talking to the bakers, which all things, unfortunately, that we are now losing. And I believe a part of it is the reasons why the younger generations who are very much based on behind the screen, but that's another podcast.
Yes.
But that is one of the issues. If we don't have exchange talks and face to face, I tend to do more face to face now, and I do Thursdays online. That's my choice. I like to see people. We use all the senses. So the closeness bit is we need to have people. We need to see people. We need to go and meet people. We need to have a discussion with people. We need to argue. We need to say hello. We need to meet the dog walker. We need to, you know what I mean? We need that. And people that actually have not got that tend to show more depressive symptoms.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I'll just say something very quickly on this. I was walking on the river with Fiona the other day, and we were passing by this guy, and he had a rucksack on. And I just thought, I could have just gone straight past him. But I said, oh, are you got a long walk ahead of you? Bearing in mind we're in Shepperton in southwest London. He said, yes, I'm actually walking home to Cornwall, which kind of got my attention a bit. And I went,
wow.
Right. And I would say this guy was probably I'm going to say he's probably early to mid 60s, something like that. And I said, oh, geez. I said, wow, that's a long way. He said, yes. I said, are you walking alone? Next question. And he said, well, he paused for a bit. He went, well, not completely. He said, what I'm actually doing is I've gone back to my birthplace, which was in Battersea Hospital. And when I was born, there was me and someone else. We were both in these incubators, and we were literally gasping for breath. And unfortunately, the other person didn't survive, and I did. And as a memory for him, I've gone back to the hospital where we were both born, and I'm walking all the way home. So spiritually, I'm with this guy. I mean, that was a magical.
How incredible.
It was, and both Fee went, oh my goodness me. And then moments later, we went about our way. And as we walked off, I thought, how amazing is it to make a connection with somebody?
Yeah.
We could have easily not bothered. And I said, we need to talk to more people. We need to talk to more people. If they don't want to talk to us, it's fine. But we past that guy, but that was a wonderful little moment. He loved sharing it, we receiving it. So
That's so powerful.
I do think your point there around closeness, and I get my hair cut yesterday chatting to the guy who cuts my hair. I find out he's got some form, because I've talked about the sort of things we do, some form of anxiety that he was describing. He was openly talking about it. You know, another little connection. So yes, that's why I wanted to. I think it's a very, very powerful little tool. Use.
And I know that we're coming to the end of the time, but one thing that I think it would be useful to get your advice on is a lot of what we've talked about is the impact on others, maybe at home, family, friends. If somebody is at home, a partner of somebody that they know is going through a very stressful time, how can they best support them? Because I know it can probably be very frustrating, but what are some of the things that partner can do to support the person going through the situation?
Some people like to be, it's individual, but that's why my first question would be always ask people what they need. They may or may not be in a position to answer, but if they do, take it on board. But in my experience, when people are so overwhelmed, is because they feel that they are failing at a lot of things and they feel overwhelmed with that. So any demands can be problematic. So I would say make them feel as if they don't need to do anything but be themselves. Don't demand things at an unrealistic time. Allow them to be.
Yeah.
So there's nothing more, I think, therapeutic to be in your home when the other person gets it and she or he does not ask anything. It makes you gets it, makes you a cup of tea, moves on with reading a book. You need to feel that you don't have any demands.
Yeah.
At that point.
I can get in touch with you because I've had the pleasure of working with you a few times. Fee and I worked with you many years ago, and I've worked, quite a lot of therapists over the years on different things. And I found the experience with you, both of us did, really, it was fun. I wasn't expecting it to be, it was difficult at times. Referee, right? Okay, thing, right? But you made it fun and you made it human and you made it very, very practical, and you weren't what I would call the sort of chin stroking therapist where they stroke their chin. That's exactly it, right? All right. And ask you questions that you've absolutely got nothing about and you feel quite intimidated and sometimes even patronized. You're not all those things. You're not. You're the complete opposite. And it was an absolute joy to work with you and fantastic results as well. So how can people get in touch with you?
Obviously, if you can give me my details, my email is the best, or my website. And then if I cannot see them for whatever reason, I assess. And if they're not right for me, or I'm not right for them, if there's not a good match, I refer on to a member of my team.
Right. Okay. That's the process. They engage because, and I just want people to know that you're available. Well, you might not always be available, quite busy, but you are accessible to them.
Yeah.
You're not just a person on a podcast. You are known to us, and I think you do a great job. So I want people to have that opportunity, should they, to feel comfortable that you are someone they could reach out to if they wanted some help. Either in their relationships or professionally. Which I think is,
and we'll put those details in the show notes, and if it's all right with you, Artemis, we'll attach that ACE sheet for people as well.
Brilliant.
I think that'd be really useful.
All right. Well, look, thank you very much for joining us today. Again, really practical, very useful, great insights. And I think everybody listening to this, as you said, well-being is a well-trodden phrase people are getting very used to. But I do think we need to remember that it's a doing thing, not and it's a feeling thing. I do like your question you repeated multiple times over the course of this conversation. And I've written it down here: ask people what they need, but really listen to the answer, and then act on it. Don't just feel because you've spoken about it, you had the conversation done. It's the action that follows is the key thing. It's another key message I've heard from you. So I really appreciate your time. Many thanks for
very powerful. Thank you.
Joining us again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you both. It's been a pleasure. Anytime you need me.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.